What if the most iconic foods in your kitchen weren't invented where you think, what if the heartland of America, not New York, not Paris, not some ancient coastal city quietly reshaped the way the entire world eats? What if one landlocked state buried under snow for half the year became one of the most quietly revolutionary places in food history? That state is Minnesota. And here at Dish Atlas, we're about to prove it. One dish, one invention, one jaw-dropping origin story at a time. Hit subscribe so you never miss a story like this one. Food number 1, Wheaties. Today, Wheaties is synonymous with champions, the cereal that has graced more than 1,000 different athletes on its iconic orange box since 1958. But the story of how it got there starts not in a boardroom, but in a kitchen accident so ordinary it almost got thrown away. In 1921, a Minnesota health clinician named Mylan Ferguson accidentally spilled a wheat bran gruel mixture onto a hot stove. Instead of scraping it into the trash, he tasted the thin, crispy flake that formed, and something clicked. He brought the idea to the Washburn-Crosby Company in Minneapolis, which would later become General Mills. And after years of testing over 36 different wheat flake recipes, they landed on the one that worked. Here's the part that stops people cold Wheaties almost never happened. The company held an internal competition among employees to name the cereal, and a company manager's wife named Jane Bousman submitted the winning name, beating out the original frontrunner, which was simply called Washburn's Gold Medal Whole Wheat Flakes. Not exactly catchy. Wheaties became the first cereal ever advertised on radio in 1926, singing its way into American homes before television even existed. It wasn't just breakfast, it was the beginning of sports marketing as we know it. Food number 2, Bisquick. Bisquick sits in millions of kitchen cabinets today as the go-to shortcut for pancakes, biscuits, and everything in between. A humble box that quietly represents one of the most important innovations in American cooking convenience. But its origin didn't come from a food laboratory or a corporate test kitchen. It came from a dining car somewhere between Portland and San Francisco. In 1930, a General Mills sales executive named Carl Smith took a late-night train ride and ordered biscuits in the dining car, fully expecting the slow, labor-intensive wait that fresh biscuits always demanded. Instead, they arrived hot and perfect within minutes. Stunned, Smith tracked down the chef, who revealed he kept a pre-mixed blend of lard flour baking powder and salt stored in the icebox ready to bake at any moment. Smith brought that idea straight back to General Mills headquarters in Minneapolis, Minnesota, where their team of scientists spent a year perfecting a shelf-stable version. Here's the counterintuitive twist. When Bisquick launched in 1931, it was so revolutionary that professional bakers and home economists publicly criticized it, arguing that convenience would destroy the art of cooking. Instead, it did the opposite. It brought baking into homes that had never attempted it before, democratizing one of the most intimidating kitchen skills in one simple pour and stir moment. Bisquick didn't just save time, it rewrote who got to bake. Food number 3, Green Giant canned vegetables. The Jolly Green Giant is one of the most recognizable advertising icons in American history. A towering, smiling figure who made generations of children actually want to eat their vegetables. But behind that cheerful giant is a story about a single unusual pea, a struggling Minnesota farming cooperative, and the reinvention of how America thinks about vegetables altogether. In 1903, a group of farmers in LeSueur, Minnesota discovered that the Minnesota River Valley's uniquely cold, rich soil produced a pea unlike any other larger, starchier, and less sweet than standard varieties. They called it the Prince of Wales pea, and they built the Minnesota Valley Canning Company around it. For years, the product sold modestly until a canning executive named Edward Cosgrove decided the oversized pea needed an oversized personality to match. In 1925, the Green Giant character was born. Originally a scowling caveman-like figure draped in a bearskin, he didn't smile until 1935. Here's the fact that genuinely surprises people. The valley around LeSueur, Minnesota is still referred to by food scientists as one of the most uniquely fertile microclimates in North America for sweet pea cultivation, a natural accident of glacial soil deposits left behind from the last ice age. The land itself made the product possible. The Green Giant didn't just sell vegetables, he sold the idea that where food comes from matters just as much as what it is. Food number 4. Honeycrisp apple. The Honeycrisp apple is now the most popular apple variety in the United States. Crisp, explosively juicy, perfectly balanced between sweet and tart. The kind of apple that makes every other apple feel like a compromise. It commands a premium price at every grocery store in the country, and for millions of people it has completely ruined cheaper apples forever. It was born at the University of Minnesota's apple breeding program in 1960, developed by horticulturist Howard Luby through a cross between a Macoun and a Honeygold apple. The university released it to the public in 1991 after 30 years of patient, meticulous cultivation, and the response was immediate. Grocery stores couldn't keep it stocked. Orchards scrambled to plant it as fast as biologically possible. Within a decade, it had transformed the entire American apple industry. Here's the detail that makes food scientists shake their heads in amazement. For years, researchers actually misidentified Honeycrisp's parent varieties. A 2004 DNA analysis revealed that neither Macoun nor Honeygold was the true parent. The real genetic lineage remains partially unknown to this day. The most beloved apple in America is in a very real sense a mystery. What makes Honeycrisp extraordinary isn't just its flavor, it's what it represents. 30 years of quiet, unglamorous scientific dedication pursued in a cold Midwestern state produced something the entire world now reaches for without a second thought. Food number 5. Betty Crocker. Betty Crocker isn't a food exactly, but she is one of the most influential culinary figures in American history, and she was born entirely from the imagination of a Minneapolis flour company that needed a friendlier face. Today, the Betty Crocker brand appears on over 200 products worldwide, and her cookbooks have sold more than 65 million copies, making her one of the best-selling cookbook authors of all time. The catch: she never existed. In 1921, the Washburn Crosby Company in Minneapolis ran a promotional contest and received thousands of entries from women across the country. To send personalized responses, they needed a woman's signature something more warm and approachable than a corporate letterhead. A company director named Samuel Gale held an internal contest among female employees to create the signature, and the last name Crocker was chosen to honor a recently retired director, William Crocker. Betty was simply chosen because it sounded friendly. Here's the detail that stops people mid-sentence. In a 1945 Fortune magazine poll, Betty Crocker was ranked the second most recognized woman in America, behind only Eleanor Roosevelt. A fictional woman invented in Minnesota to sign letters was more famous than almost every real woman alive. Betty Crocker wasn't just a brand mascot. She was a mirror reflecting what America wanted from food, comfort, reliability, and the feeling that someone knowledgeable was always in the kitchen with you. Food number 6, Pillsbury Doughboy. Like Betty Crocker, the Pillsbury Doughboy isn't a food, but he is inseparable from one of the most beloved food experiences in American life, peeling open that cardboard tube, hearing the satisfying pop, and pulling out soft, pillowy dough ready to bake in minutes. That simple ritual has played out in American kitchens for over 60 years, and it started in Minneapolis, Minnesota, in a moment of pure creative inspiration. The Pillsbury Company itself was founded in Minneapolis in 1869 by Charles Alfred Pillsbury, who transformed a single flour mill on the banks of the Mississippi River into one of the most powerful food companies in the world. But the Doughboy, officially named Poppin' Fresh, didn't arrive until 1965, when advertising agency Leo Burnett created him for a Pillsbury Crescent Roll campaign. He was brought to life as a soft, giggling white dough figure with a chef's hat. Voiced originally by actor Paul Frees, whose gentle chuckle when poked in the belly became one of the most recognized sounds in television advertising history. Here's the fact that genuinely delights people. Poppin' Fresh has a fully developed fictional family, including a wife named Poppy Fresh children grandparents, and even a cat named Biscuit and a dog named Flapjack. Pillsbury built an entire domestic universe around a tube of dough. The Doughboy didn't just sell biscuits. He sold the warmth of a home where something good is always just about to come out of the oven. Food number 7. Spam. Spam is one of those foods that exists in a strange cultural space, simultaneously mocked and beloved, a punchline in some countries and a genuine delicacy in others. It fills grocery shelves from Minnesota to Manila, from London to Seoul. And it has fed soldiers, sustained families through poverty, and inspired entire culinary traditions across the Pacific. No other canned meat in history has traveled further or meant more to more people. It was created in Austin, Minnesota in 1937 by J. Hormel, son of Hormel Foods founder George Hormel. Jay needed a way to use the company's surplus pork shoulder, a cut that was difficult to sell and constantly piling up in the facility. He combined it with ham saltwater sugar and sodium nitrite, sealed it in a distinctive rectangular can, and launched it with a $100 naming contest won by an actor named Kenneth Daigneault, who combined the words spiced and ham into something short, punchy, and impossible to forget. Here's the fact that reframes everything. During World War II, the U.S. military shipped over 150 million pounds of Spam to Allied forces around the world. Soviet Premier Nikita Khrushchev later credited Spam with helping keep the Russian army alive during the war. A canned meat from a small Minnesota town may have literally helped win World War II. Spam isn't just processed meat. It is survival resourcefulness and the remarkable human ability to turn something overlooked into something indispensable. Food number 8. Malt-O-Meal. There is something deeply comforting about a warm bowl of hot cereal on a freezing morning, the kind of thick, steaming, honey-sweet porridge that wraps around you from the inside out. For millions of Americans, that feeling has a name: Malt-O-Meal. It sits quietly on grocery shelves, often overshadowed by flashier breakfast brands. Yet it has been warming American mornings for over a century, with a consistency and simplicity that borders on timeless. Malt-O-Meal was created in 1919 by John Campbell in Owatonna, Minnesota, a small town about 70 miles south of Minneapolis. Campbell developed a toasted wheat farina cereal that was finer and smoother than anything available at the time, giving it a silky, almost velvety texture when cooked. He named it Malt-O-Meal to highlight the malted wheat base that gave the cereal its distinctly warm, slightly nutty flavor, a flavor profile so specific and comforting that it built a loyal following across the Midwest almost immediately. Here's the counterintuitive fact that surprises most people. The Malt-O-Meal company, now known as Mom Brands, eventually grew into one of the largest cereal manufacturers in the United States, producing bagged versions of cereals that mirror nearly every major name brand product at a fraction of the cost. The quiet little company from Owatonna became the affordable backbone of American breakfast aisles nationwide. Malt-O-Meal never needed a celebrity on its box. It let the warmth in the bowl speak for itself. Food number 9. Ranch dressing. Wait before you object. Hear this out completely, because the Minnesota connection to ranch dressing is real, documented, and genuinely surprising. Ranch is the single most consumed salad dressing in the United States, outselling its nearest competitor by hundreds of millions of dollars annually. It is the flavor that defines American casual dining, cool, creamy, herby, and rich in a way that makes almost everything it touches taste better. The origin story most people know points to Steve Henson, a plumber-turned-cook who developed the original recipe in Alaska in the early 1950s and later opened Hidden Valley Ranch in California. And that story is true. But the mass-market version of ranch dressing that actually reached American tables at scale was manufactured and distributed by a Minneapolis-based company. When Clorox purchased the Hidden Valley brand in 1972 and needed a commercial production partner capable of bottling and distributing ranch nationally, it was Minnesota's food manufacturing infrastructure, built over decades by companies like General Mills and Hormel, that made the nationwide explosion of ranch dressing physically possible. Here's the detail that reframes the whole story. Before Hidden Valley began selling dry ranch seasoning packets, in 1983, ranch dressing didn't exist as a pantry staple in most American homes. The packet, manufactured and distributed through Midwestern supply chains, is what turned ranch from a restaurant condiment into a household obsession. Ranch dressing didn't conquer America from California. It conquered America from the middle of the country outward. Food number 10, the Juicy Lucy. Some foods are elegant, some are refined, some carry centuries of tradition and technique in every carefully constructed bite. And then there is the Juicy Lucy, a burger so gloriously aggressively indulgent that it practically dares you to eat it with dignity. It is a cheeseburger where the cheese isn't melted on top of the patty, it is sealed inside it, molten and bubbling, waiting to explode the moment you take your first bite. It is messy, dangerous, and absolutely magnificent. The Juicy Lucy was born in Minneapolis, Minnesota sometime in the 1950s, and two bars on the same street have been fighting over its invention ever since. Matt's Bar on Cedar Avenue claims their founder Matt Bristol created it first. The 5-8 Club just a few miles away insists they were the original. The dispute has never been formally settled, and honestly the argument itself has become part of the legend. What both bars agree on is the core experience: two thin beef patties pressed together around a thick core of American cheese, then grilled until that cheese becomes a pocket of liquid gold. What makes first-time visitors at Matt's Bar hesitate is a warning that feels almost unbelievable until you experience it yourself. By long-standing house tradition, every server is expected to tell customers that the molten cheese inside the burger gets hot enough to cause real burns. This is not a gimmick. It is part of the ritual part of the legend and part of what made the burger famous in the first place. Even the menu leans into the mythology with the line, "If it's spelled right, it's done right." At Matt's, it is spelled Juicy Lucy. Across town, the 5-8 Club insists on Juicy Lucy. That one missing letter has fueled one of the most enduring food rivalries in Minneapolis history, and that is why the Juicy Lucy is more than just a burger. It captures the city in a single bite, simple, fearless, a little stubborn, completely original, and unforgettable once you've had it. From an accidental wheat flake crisping on a stove to a cheese-stuffed burger that scorches your mouth but still makes you grin. Minnesota didn't just add a few dishes to American food history, it helped shape that history quietly, steadily, and brilliantly. That is the spirit of Dish Atlas, uncovering the hidden stories behind everyday foods and making the familiar feel surprising again.